Yo, what is good, YouTube? It's your boy Des Reacts back with another banger video. This one we got Germany's perspective on major allied armies of World War II. Thought this would be an interesting one to do because one, I never seen it. Two, I don't really know how they felt about the allied forces and who they thought was the strongest, so it's gonna be a fun video. Let me know in the comments right now who you guys think was the strongest ally, and I just want to know your thoughts and opinions on it. And if you guys enjoy my content, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. I'm at 1.7k subs right now, actually, and we're almost at 2k. I hope to get that by 9-11, which I think we could do it, man. You guys are freaking awesome. And if you really enjoy my content, you guys could hit that thank you button underneath the video, or you guys could buy me a coffee. Links in the bio. Shout out to Michael Probert for buying me a coffee, man. Much love. Without further ado, let's get it.
Forces of Nazi Germany went toe-to-toe with a wide variety of Allied forces during the Second World War. But what did the Germans think of the Allies? The answer to this question is, of course, incredibly complicated and subjective. So in this video, we're going to look at just a few examples that offer valuable insights into the German perspective and then offer our opinion on which Allied forces the Germans hated fighting the most.
Up front. Shout out to them.
Unfortunately for the USSR, Hitler bought into a conspiracy theory that Jews were the principal minds behind the Bolshevik Party. So the Soviets were both Slavs and, according to Hitler, under the leadership of Jews. After he began his...
Man, I just gotta stop it there for a second, man. That's some straight dog crap, bro. Man, shout out to all my Jewish subscribers. Shout out to, you know, the Jews across America and the world, man. We love you guys, bro. And yeah.
Invasion of the Soviet Union, Nazi propaganda called for their extermination. Every single Slavic man, woman, and child had, in Hitler's eyes, no right to live. During this offensive, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's forces committed innumerable atrocities against captured Red Army soldiers. Many were put to death on the spot, while millions ended up in POW, slave labor, concentration, and extermination camps, where the conditions were obviously horrendous.
Bro, that's honestly so sad, man.
At least
it's so sad, bro. Millions of Jews, man, got sent to their slaughter, got sent to their deaths, and all for no reason. Like, there's no good reason to even do that, man. And like I mentioned before, not all German soldiers were bad soldiers. A lot of them were just, you know, trying to defend their country and being a good soldier. I'm pretty sure it's like only a handful of like soldiers, you know, actually knew exactly what was going on with the Germans and all that. Or not the Germans, with the Jews, I'm sorry.
3.3 million Soviet POWs died in Nazi camps during the war. That was 57% of all Soviet POWs. The majority died slowly from starvation. While Hitler's invasion was originally a great success, he failed to stamp out the Soviets in Stalingrad, and that horrific battle saw the German 6th Army eradicated and the war on the Eastern Front take a dramatic reversal in favor of the Soviets. If they hadn't demonstrated it already, the Slavs of the USSR weren't the subhumans Nazi propaganda portrayed them to be. They could fight, and by God, they could take a beating. As German Field Marshal...
And, you know, to put it in the context, like, the Russians had so many people in their army, the Red Army. Like, they had millions of soldiers, and a lot of them got, like, they lost numbers by the masses though, but they were strong-willed to fight.
Paul Ludwig Ewald von Kleist put it, from the very beginning, the Russians proved themselves first-class warriors. Our successes in the first months of the war can be explained by better training. Having gained combat experience, the Russians became first-class soldiers, and they fought with exceptional perseverance and had astounding endurance. As the Soviet counteroffensive advanced on Berlin, German contempt for the Soviets shifted to fear. After all the horrors that German soldiers had inflicted on the soldiers and civilians of the USSR, the Reds thought it was payback time. The Red Army exacted revenge for every Soviet corpse and every burned village left behind by the Germans. Many Germans fled to the Western Allies' front lines so they could surrender to them instead of the Red Army.
Yeah, because when the Red Army would capture these Germans, they were sending them to labor camps, you know, if they didn't kill them, you know what I mean? Like they were sending them to labor camps to where they essentially worked themselves to death, because a lot of them just starved to death.
While Hitler viewed the Soviets as Untermenschen, the British, with their Anglo-Saxon blood, were Aryans in his mind. England was a natural ally for Germany, he said. The English are our brothers. Why fight our brothers? When Churchill refused to accept Germany's conquest of Europe, Hitler considered war with Britain inevitable. After claiming that the British were Aryan and of good German stock, Hitler needed some explanation as to why the British wouldn't ally themselves with Germany. He decided, of course, that the Jews must be behind it, that they must be running the show from behind the curtains.
Bro, that's so crazy, bro. Hitler really thought that you guys were about to be allies. And I learned this in history books. Hitler thought the perfect human being was with blonde hair, a white man or a white woman, or most likely white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. He thought they were the perfect human. And he had none of those features besides the white skin. But man, that's crazy. And then he just thought it was just complete a mind trip to think that Britain wouldn't ally with them and see his vision. That's insane.
This justified his war. As the war progressed, Hitler saw some of Britain's biggest defeats and still considered peace with the British. Following the fall of Singapore, he said, "The British Empire will be doomed after the war unless the English come to their senses and sign an alliance with us." On the battlefield, some Germans perceived British commanders as overcautious, leaving British forces slow to react. Some concluded that the British were quick to break off attacks in order to consolidate too, sometimes to their detriment. After capturing some British officers in the siege of Tobruk, German General Erwin Rommel apparently said, "Gentlemen, you have fought like lions and been led by donkeys." The Brits were often perceived as hard-hitting and professional too, as corroborated in Wehrmacht General Siegfried Westphal.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing to react a little slower to situations. That just tells me that, you know, the British was very good at coordinating attacks and executing. Like they're more slow and methodical, like you'd see nowadays. You know, it's more of quality over quantity in this situation. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to take your time with operations to make sure they're as effective and efficient as possible.
The German army.
I think that means that, you know, they're not led by donkeys. I feel like that's some pretty good leadership.
In the West. The hardest, toughest in attack and most persistent in defense were the British divisions. The uniformity of the British personnel was most striking. One saw not so much extraordinary audacity, but the absence of failures. In the skies over Britain, the RAF more than proved their mettle, and the Germans seemed to respect the Air Force's capacity to build planes.
And we learned about the RAF in the 13 Hours That Saved Britain. Go check out that video. Probably gonna have it up here somewhere. But yeah, man, check that out, man. That was a crazy documentary.
According to Hermann Göring, Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, in 1940, I could at least fly as far as Glasgow in most of my aircraft, but not now. It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. The British knocked together a beautiful wooden aircraft that every piano factory over there is building, and they give it a speed which they have now increased yet again. There's nothing the British do not have. They have geniuses, and we have the nincompoops.
It's crazy hearing that from a German officer or soldier. It's crazy, man. They're just singing the praises of the enemy.
While he might not have held them in as high regard as the British, the French certainly weren't what Hitler would have referred to as Untermenschen. As an artist himself, he respected French culture and had always wanted to visit the French capital. Arriving in Paris after the Battle of France, Hitler's architect Albert Speer said, "Hitler went into ecstasies about the Opera Garnier's beauty, his eyes glittering with an excitement that struck me as uncanny." In the lead up to the Battle of France, Hitler's generals believed his offensive was an insane gamble. The French had a stalwart defense in the form of the Maginot Line and overall a highly respected military history. German General Franz Halder wrote, "None of the higher headquarters think that the offensive has any prospect of success." Even during and after the fall of France, many German soldiers continued to hold the French in high regard.
And that's the thing. Like, honestly, I feel like the French leader, the one that surrendered, I feel like one, he had to be like bribed, like bad. Two, they wanted to preserve definitely like their landmarks and monuments and stuff. But three, like it wasn't the French people that wanted to surrender. A lot of them fought in like the as a rebellion, you know what I mean? And the French people, I know they're strong people, and they we could joke about it and stuff, but they did not want to surrender to the Germans. It was just the government leaders.
In the Battle of...
And I guarantee you the morale, and I guarantee you the French soldiers were pissed off because now technically they have to ally with Germany and they have to fight the Allied forces, which they know is going to be detrimental.
Dunkirk, for instance, German Field Marshal Georg von Küchler said, "Despite our crushing numerical and material superiority, the French counterattack in several places. I fail to understand how these soldiers, fighting sometimes at 1 against 20, can find enough strength to make an assault. It's just stunning." German General Walter von Reichenau also praised the French defense at Dunkirk, simply stating, "The French troops have fought like lions." But praise for the French wasn't limited to their performance at Dunkirk. Free
North
French
Africa.
forces put up an outstanding defense in the 1942 Battle of Bir Hakeim in Italian Libya. So much so that they earned the respect of German General Friedrich von Mellenthin, who wrote, "Some British officers have insinuated that French morale gave way, but in the whole course of the Desert War, we never encountered a more heroic and well-sustained defense." Hitler himself agreed with von Mellenthin. Speaking to a journalist after Bir Hakeim, he said, "This is new evidence of the thesis I have always defended. The French are, after us, the best soldiers in Europe."
And he is just saying that, honestly, I'm sure they fought valiantly, but he is saying that because he knew that they were forced to ally with him, and he wants to look in their best interest. Like, he wants to, blow smoke up the French's butts because he wants them to fight for him with, unwaveringly loyalty. Like, I don't know, I wasn't there, but to just straight up blatantly say the French after them are the best fighting force in Europe, I don't think that that's possible if they surrendered. You know what I mean? Make it make sense to me.
While Hitler may...
And let me know in the comments, gosh, bro, how, if you guys have any French relatives or anything, like, how did that impact, their morale? Like, if just knowing stories from your guys' great-grandpas, grandparents, or whatever, let me know in the comments if, like, them surrendering to Germany was like a slap in the face to the people or not.
may have respected the French, the Americans were another story. Nazi propaganda depicted Americans as a mongrel race, diluted with Jewish blood to produce a nation of gangsters and thugs. In his words, "I don't see much future for the Americans. It's a decayed country, and they have their racial problem. My feelings against Americanism are of hatred and deep repugnance. Everything about the behavior of American society reveals that it's half Judaized, and the other half negrified." As for how Americans were perceived on the battlefield, German opinions were mixed.
And we all know, because one, he's saying that because, usually you're the loudest when you're uncomfortable and nervous, you know what I mean? Like, or you're just going to tuck away like little sheep, you know what I mean? Like, tail between your legs. But Hitler, he's the opposite of that. Like, he knew America was one of the biggest threats if they joined the war, or when they joined the war, because, of all the funds we had and ships, weapons, because we're supplying, our allies with it too. And we had numbers as well. So I feel like he was scared of the Americans for sure.
Some thought the Americans were cheating by making good use of their industrial capacity, and that, not their skill, led them to victory in the war. In About Face, The Odyssey of an American Warrior, author David Hackworth describes an interaction he had with a German POW. When Hackworth asked the German why, if the Wehrmacht produced such brilliant soldiers, the German was a POW and not him, the German replied, "I was an 88mm anti-tank battery commander. Every time the Americans sent a tank, we knocked it out. They kept sending tanks, and we kept knocking them out until we finally ran out of ammunition. The reason I'm here is that the Americans didn't run out of tanks."
And yeah, I guess there's like a joke saying like, you know, I took out 3 tanks, but it's the 4th one that got me. Like, that's why I'm saying like we had so much weapons, and even today we have so many tanks, so many planes, so many everything. So it's like, you know, you better have enough ammo.
Other Germans perceived American soldiers as lacking in discipline and poorly dressed. According to one Dr. Otto Schrankmüller, the American Army is a fine collection of individual physical specimens. But from the standpoint of military discipline, it's a mob, pure and simple. The men appear slouchy. The officers do not stand out from the men in appearance as they do in any European army.
And that's honestly a good thing. Like, so say you're in a reconnaissance group or whatever, and say, for instance, the Americans or UK, any of the Allied forces was doing like a reconnaissance mission on the Nazis, and they're looking through binoculars. You see regular soldiers. Then you see a dude in a $2,000 suit with, you know, just pristine condition hats, all the belts, all the medals. You know he's an officer or someone important, and you're gonna take him out first. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily a bad thing that our officers aren't dressed to impress, especially when they're in the battlefield. You know what I mean?
Still, other Germans perceived American soldiers to be very honorable foes, as was the case with General Karl von Einem's chief of staff, who, according to an American military report, said, "I have found your American army the most honorable of all our enemies. You have also been the bravest, and in fact, the only ones who have attacked us seriously in this year's battles. I therefore honor you, and now that the war is over, I stand ready to accept you as a friend." From the anecdotes presented in this video, we might conclude that of the USSR, Britain, France, and the United States, Germans feared Soviet soldiers the most, especially after the Red Army turned things around at Stalingrad and the Soviets were out for revenge. And it seems that they had the most respect for the British. Remember though, this is merely our opinion, and we're interested to know what you think. So, which nation's warriors do you think the Germans feared the most?
And let me know that in the comments, man. Who you guys think Germany feared the most? Was it the Russians, UK, Soviet, or obviously that's the Russians, but the US American Army? Let me know in the comments what you guys think, man. This is a pretty crazy one. We could all agree that Hitler is a POS, you know, and we love Germany now. I love you guys. I love all my German subs out there. And if you guys enjoyed this content, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. Links in the description if you want to support your boy's channel. Catch you guys on the next one, man. Peace.